All right, well, thank you for coming to our Bill Flash Collecting Patient Payments During Economic Hardships. Today, the presenter will be Tony Peterson. He is our Director of our Sales. I am Mari Sarmiento, and I am a channel account executive. And so I'd like to, first off, just thank everybody for taking their time out of today to be here. And we do appreciate all the frontline work that everybody is doing, especially during this pandemic. At this time, I would like to turn the time over to Tony for his presentation. We do have Kathy Scott and Angela Carter, and they'll be fielding our Q&As during the presentation. At any time you have a question, you can select the questions tab and submit that question to us, and we'll be able to get back to you on that. And then any handouts that we may have would also be available if there is any. And so at this time, I'll just turn it over to Tony.
Thank you, Mari, and thank you all, like Mari said, for joining us. We understand that it's an interesting time that we're living and working in right now, and that your time is precious, and we appreciate that you spend a little bit of with us here today. Hopefully this presentation will have things that can benefit your practice, regardless of the system that you're using or the circumstances that you find yourself in, because everybody in healthcare has been affected by the increase in patient responsibility. When you combine that with the pandemic that has hit us with patients staying at home, it's more important than ever to find ways to make it possible for your patients to pay you more easily, in a more automated manner, and more quickly than they had in the past. So I think we've got a great presentation for you here today. Let's see if I can get this to advance. Our overview or agenda for today, we want to help you see how you can sensitively address and collect from your patients during economic hard times. We'll talk a little bit about some of the current patient payment trends in the industry. We also want to go over how you can automate some of your patient payment process. There's a lot of practices that think that automation of payments is something that is for other industries, other types of bills, and we believe that it's something that could benefit all of our customers in a very big way, if utilized properly. We also want to show you how you can utilize payment plans to increase the likelihood that the patient is going to pay. And we'll talk about some of the best practices for managing collections during economic hardships. So we will jump right in here. Let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges to getting paid. Make sure that we're on the same page here as to why collecting from patients can be so difficult. One of the first things that can affect patients' propensity to pay is how well they understand the statement that is sent versus what is an insurance EOB and what is the amount owed. Understanding healthcare billing in some ways requires a college degree, and our patients don't have college degrees in healthcare billing. So their ability to understand the context of their statement, why they're being charged, what they're getting charged, and why it's important for them to pay that portion is very important to making sure that they actually pay that amount. There's a lot of patients who really aren't sure how much they owe for the services that are provided. Healthcare is very different than other industries in that you don't really go in with a price list or a menu, so to say, of services that patients come in and order from. You don't really know what the charges are going to be in some circumstances until after the visit has occurred. That is something that makes it so that patients are less likely to pay because they don't understand what portion their insurance should be paying versus what they should be paying. I don't believe that the healthcare industry communicates deadlines and urgency very well regarding patient portions. There's a lot of times that I've heard from practices that they don't even send patient statements out at all because they don't want to deal with some of the calls and questions that come up when those statements come out. If you don't make it an urgent matter to bill your patients and send those statements out, then you're not going to get those payments in. And if a patient payment represents a large portion of each claim that goes out, then you're leaving a lot of money on the table. And a lot of times the way that this is manifested in doctors' offices and practices is they'll say that their reimbursements are declining. Well, one of the reasons that reimbursements are declining is because the patient owes a lot more of each visit than they used to, even 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So making sure that you're communicating those issues and the urgency with those are very important. There's a lot of patients right now that are having financial issues. There's some estimates out there that the unemployment rate is anywhere between 25 and 30%. So that means that there's a lot of people who are suffering financially right now. It's important that we recognize, though, that if there is a 25 to 30% unemployment rate, that means that there is a 70 to 75% employed rate. There are a number of people, many people out there who are still working and still have their income coming in. It's important that we bill those patients and have them pay for their portion of the bill so that our practices can stay in business and continue to provide the outstanding healthcare services that we do to our patients. It's also very evident that patients continue to pay for healthcare by mailing in checks. We have data on this at Bill Flash that shows that a large percentage of the healthcare bills that are paid by our customers are still paid via check in the office. There's hardly any industry that I can think of where there's such a high percentage of check payments that are still coming in. Those payments are less secure, more likely to bounce. They're less timely in posting to your bank account than a credit card or an online payment. So it delays your ability to get that money quickly. All of these things put together are some of the major reasons that we see why patients have a hard time paying and practices have a hard time getting paid. So let's go into our first of 3 poll questions that we're going to ask on the call today. How much of your patient's billing is 90 days past due? If you go into the GoToWebinar interface, there's a poll that is open, and there's a number of different options that are there for you: 0 to 20%, 21 to 40%, 41 to 60%, and 61 plus. And looks like there's still a lot of votes coming in. There's 30% of you who are on the call have voted. And so far, it appears that in the majority, or maybe not the majority, a plurality of the circumstances out there, 21 to 40% of all patient billing is 90 plus days past due. There's a few of you that are saying that it's 0 to 20%. There's a fairly large number, 1/4 of you that are on the call right now are saying that anywhere from 41 to 60% of all of your patient billing is over 90 days past due. If the patient portion makes up 50% of your bill, that means that there is a huge amount of money that is sitting out there waiting for you to collect it. If your reimbursements are going down, this is a likely reason why. We can go ahead and close the poll now, please. We got another one coming up here in just a minute. So let's hopefully move on to the next slide. There we go. Let's talk about some of the trends that we're seeing in the medical industry right now. 67% of providers say that their biggest revenue cycle concern is patient collections, getting the money that the patient owes in. And if you would have gone back 20 years to when I started my time in healthcare, that would not have been higher than 10%. There's a number of reasons for that. Largely because the patients had smaller deductibles or no deductibles 20 years ago. But the rise of high deductible plans has led to almost 70% of providers saying their biggest revenue cycle concern is that the patients aren't paying. 69% have said that they've seen an increase in patient responsibility compared to 2017. So that's almost 70% of you are also seeing that this trend is not reversing, it's staying the same. 73% of providers are saying it takes usually longer than 1 month to collect from patients. So it's really quite evident that the healthcare industry is not doing a very good job at going and getting the portion of the claim or the visit that each patient owes for the care that they're being given. Bill Flash is here, and hopefully what we can show you today is how we can help you reduce some of those concerns and increase the payments that are coming in from your patient using tools that make it easy for you to do so. So your patients want and expect electronic communication from you. There are an increasing number of patients that don't want to receive bills in the mail. They don't look at the paper statements. They don't want paper receipts when they leave your practice. They want to communicate with you via electronic communication, whether that be text, email, portal, telehealth platforms. There's a large number of different ways that patients want and expect that. And in fact, I don't have the statistics in this particular presentation, but we've seen that there's a majority of patients that have said in one survey that they were willing to switch healthcare providers to go to one that it has better online payment and communication protocols. So those patients, they want and they expect electronic communication. We want you to also consider ways that you can communicate more to your patients. There's a lot of different options within Bill Flash and other ways that you communicate, where you can use inserts, onserts, email, text reminders. There's numerous different ways that you can communicate with your patients utilizing the suite of services that Bill Flash has to offer to you. And if you do that, you're going to be meeting those patients' demands. If more than half of patients are saying they're willing to switch practices to ones that are better able to communicate and facilitate payments using electronic methodologies, that means that at least half of your patients will be more likely to stay with you and come and see you in your practice if you're utilizing these methods to help them not only see their bills, but pay their bills. Maintaining and growing our patient base is very important during times like this, where there's patients who are hesitant to go into the doctor's office. They're scared for a number of reasons, and we don't want to give them any more reason to search out a different provider that might have more electronic options than we have. So explore as we go through this what those options might mean for your practice. All right, let's take a look at a flow chart here that talks a little bit about how we can fit in and help you get paid. If you utilize Bill Flash first, or even if you don't utilize Bill Flash, this first little orange box up here in the left-hand corner talks about statements going out. They're mailed, emailed out to patients, and that's done in order to make the patients aware of the services and charges that they're being billed for. If they're aware of those charges, then they're able to actually become engaged with you. And when they're engaged with you, that means that they're communicating with you. They are letting you know, hey, I got laid off last month, and so I need an option to pay my bill that might allow me to compensate for some of the lack of income that's there. Once they have acknowledged the debt, if they're engaged, they can acknowledge the debt, and then they're either going to pay you or they're not going to pay you. Sometimes they just pay the whole thing up front and you get paid. If you see this middle arrow coming right down here to our hopefully big blue box of getting you paid. But in other circumstances, you might have to utilize things like an automatic payment option, setting up payment plans, setting up stored online payment options for those patients, or integrating collections into your practice, which you can see if the patient doesn't pay, you send them over to collections. Hopefully they do then pay, and then ultimately the result is that you get paid, or at least you are more likely to get paid when you utilize these options to help your patients pay their bills. Let's talk about some of the online patient billing and payment options that are available in Bill Flash. There's pre-visit charges that might come into play, like a copay for a telehealth visit, for example. Bill Flash has a service that will allow you to email a charge to patients, which will allow them to pay their bill online prior to a telehealth visit, or any other visit for that matter. You may be opening up your practice right now for the first time in months due to the lockdowns that were in place, and you're looking for ways to reduce the number of touch points that the patients are having with each member of your staff. One option that you could utilize was using the Bill Flash online patient payments to collect any amounts prior to the patients coming into your office. The patient can make those payments using any electronic device that has internet connection. So you could even have them wait outside the practice and pay on their phone before coming in and running a card that they've used at every store that they've been to in the last month. This reduces the risk to not only your staff, but the other patients that are there. So giving them online patient billing options to collect pre-visit charges is not only for telehealth, but for those visits that you have in practice as well. Post-visit electronic statements is where BillFlash really grew up in the industry, where sending out a statement after the fact that shows the patient exactly what they have been billed for. That allows you to send same-day statements to patients using an electronic delivery method like email or text, where they can view their statement on any device. And if you've signed up for BillFlash Pay services, they can also pay for those services after the fact and have those rolled right back into your practice management or electronic health record system. It's also very, very important for you to understand how important automation is to this process. The patient billing amounts are increasing. Patient payments are increasing, or they should be increasing. If you utilize automation properly, you will not need to allocate more staff hours to cover these increases. Much of your patient billing and payments can and should be automated. Automated payments ensure that medical bills won't be forgotten. We have the way to make it so that BillFlash will enable your patients to sign up for a service where their statements are paid as soon as they are sent. So instead of getting a statement that says you owe us this much money, it's a receipt that says thank you for visiting. This is how much your payment method, whether that's a credit card or checking account, has been charged. It's very important for you to also understand that there will be patients who don't want to sign up for an automated payment system. That does not mean that your practice won't benefit from it. If only 30% of your patients sign up for automated payments, that still means that your patient collection efforts can be reduced by 30%, and your staff or your collection agency has the ability to focus on the other 70% of your patients who are not willing to sign up for an automated payment method. So I think
we have the next
poll is being
poll for
added.
you, Tony.
Which one should I go to? There's a few. Let's see. It keeps switching automatically on me. So the poll is open in your GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar browser. It's asking you how many patient statements do you send on a monthly basis, or how many visits do you have. There's a good portion of you, 35% have voted. It's spread all over the place. 41% now down to 38, decreasing a little bit. A large number of you were seeing between 200 and 500 patients on a monthly basis and sending out that many statements each month. That's a huge number of statements. That means that if you add $100 total to each of those statements on average, that's anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 on a monthly basis if an average is $100. That's a lot of money that's out there ready for you to collect if you utilize the methods that are there for you. Mari, is there another poll that's coming up next, or did that one disappear?
No, we have that one. That will be later in, the last poll will be later in the program.
Okay, got it. So let's talk about some of the other benefits that automation can offer you. Automation offers you consistency and promotes transparency. If the bill is going to be paid automatically using technology, that means you don't have to remind someone to go do it. There's not the human error that comes into the play here. You don't have to wait for the patient to pay it. You don't have to wait for your staff to process it. You don't have to pay your staff to process it. Your monthly email and statement billing can be automated using BillFlash. Patients are interested in convenient ways to pay. Yes, like we said earlier, there might be some patients who don't want to sign up for it, but there's a large number who are. I also want to make sure that you understand how critical payment plans are to the process of collecting from patients. There are many patients out there who, if they receive a $500 bill and expect that they have to pay the entire amount immediately, they're just not going to pay that bill. Whereas if you break it up for them into smaller chunks, a large number are going to be ready to do that. I think we've got some of that data coming up here in a slide. Yep, right here. So how can payment plans improve your patient collections? If 73% of providers are reporting that it takes longer than 1 month to collect from patients, from those, that population, 22% of patients are more likely to pay in full using a payment plan. If you could increase your patient collections by 22%, or the number of patients that are more likely to pay by 22%, it's a huge amount of money. If you look at the numbers we talked about earlier, 22% of $50,000, you're still looking at $15,000 to $20,000 there. It's a lot of money. 91% of patients plan to pay off their payment plan in full, either early or by the scheduled time. Patients want a way to split their payments up into smaller chunks. Bill Flash payment plans allow you to easily accommodate each patient's unique circumstances. You can delay the start of the payment plan for as long as you as a practice determine. So you could come to an agreement with the patient that you didn't want their billing to start until September. Bill Flash will allow you to do that. It's also very interesting to note that despite these numbers here, 91% of patients would pay off their plan in full and 22% of patients are more likely to pay using a payment plan, still only 1 in 5 providers offers a payment plan to their patients. That is one of the reasons that we find that people report and practices report out that reimbursements are declining. They're not meeting the patients where they're more likely to pay. What are some of the online billing and payment options that are available for you in Bill Flash? These are standard if you sign up for Bill Flash Pay services. Payment plans, we've talked about, they allow you to set up an automated recurring billing, automated being the key there, on the first or whatever date you specify of each month. It's going to process and go into your bank account, provided that the funds are there on the card or in the patient's account, and that the card is not expired. It's also fully PCI compliant. We allow you to set up automated payments with the stored payment method, where the patient can have their credit card on file and say, I want all bills that are under $100 to automatically be paid as soon as you send the statement out, so that the patient doesn't have to worry about it anymore. And last but not least, we allow you to store payment methods online in a PCI compliant manner that uses a token rather than the credit card. That token is a unique number that links the patient to your practice. That token is the only thing that's stored, and if anybody was to get their hands on that token, they would not be able to utilize it to charge the patient's card, because the only vendor that would be allowed to use it is you. That's why it is PCI compliant, that's why it's secure, and it makes it very easy for you to store those payment methods and then go get the payments from the patient without having to have them give you the credit card or bank account information online. It's important that we realize it's possible for us to break the cycle of collections. We've seen the data. Patients want to pay. Now, there will always be exceptions to that rule. There will be patients who don't want to pay. But generally speaking, patients want to pay for the services that are rendered. If you know this and understand that patients are wanting to pay and they're just looking for different ways to pay, that's the beginning of how you understand how you can actually get paid. The behaviors matter. If an account is very delinquent, there's a reason for it. If you understand why the patient is not able or willing to pay, you can find a resolution with them if you reach out and work with them, utilizing the tools that are there for you. This last one is a very important piece that we probably could have spent an entire slide on and a little bit more time, but we have it here and we can talk through it with this particular piece. If you provide patients an incentive to pay, they're more likely to pay. If you think about the automated payment plans or the automatic payments that are there, There is nothing that would stop you from reaching out to your patients and saying, if you're willing to sign up for automated payments, we're willing to give you a $5 write-off or credit, or a $10 write-off, 5%. Whatever you decide as your practice is the right way to approach your patients and incent them to sign up for these services, that makes it more likely that they're going to pay because it's using that automated system, and they get a benefit by signing up for it. The benefit to your practice is that you don't have to spend that time chasing down those payments. They automatically flow into your bank account without having to pay any billers to go and collect that for you. The huge benefits to you if you provide that incentive to those patients to pay. And it does not take a lot of incentive in order to make that happen. I've seen patients jump up and down ready to do it over a $5 credit if they were willing to sign up for autopay. So look at ways that you can do that. Just keep in mind the rules around medical billing and be consistent in how you apply those credits or write-offs so that you would be able to credibly go into any audit that might occur and say, this was a $5 courtesy write-off because they signed up for automatic payments and we applied it to all of our automatic payments. It's nothing unethical, illegal, or any other I can't think of the right word right now. There's nothing wrong with you utilizing those methods as long as you're consistent in their application of it. So we've got our third and final poll of the presentation today. What are the primary reasons that your practice would hesitate to send someone to collections? There's a lot of different reasons that I've heard over the years why people don't want to send their patients to a collection agency. And we've got a couple of different options that are there, and they're really split between the first and the third answers here. Almost half of you are saying that you were worried about losing patients. A small number are saying that you're okay with writing the balance off. There's a number of you that have said that collection agency efforts have not been effective. So that's very, very interesting data. If we could leave that open for just a few more seconds, Mari, I'm going to continue through the presentation, but I'd like to continue to gather the data there. I think that it's important for all of us to understand why you don't want to send somebody to collections. It seems like a very large majority of you said that the effectiveness of the collection agencies has been the reason that you hesitate to do that. Let's see if I can get this to advance. There we go. Well, recently, BillFlash rolled out an integrated collection service that integrates into the product that you have known and loved over the years, utilizing BillFlash to send statements. It's integrated. It's part of the BillFlash interface. It's also fee-based. You don't have to pay a monthly support fee for it. You only pay for the collection services if money is collected. And it utilizes the exact same methodology that BillFlash has to send someone a second statement in order to manage sending them to collections. You'll have the same customization, the same communication options. You can control which patients are sent to collection. You also have communication to know where the patient is in the process. And I'm going to show you how some of this works. Again, I want to stress for you, this is if you sign up to utilize the BillFlash integrated collection services, there is no commitment on your part. You don't pay a dime unless we collect for you. So it's definitely something that I would suggest looking at, because there are going to be patients who just aren't going to pay. Sending them to collections is the best way that you're going to be able to maximize your practice's revenue. Make sure that you stay in business and able to provide great service to those patients who are out there and happy to pay for those services. It's interesting talking about collections during economically hard times. It's important that as we go through this process, we need to empathize with, and I would add, communicate with the patient. We need to understand what their situation is before sending them to collections. We might want to wait and only send those that don't communicate with us at all to collections. We need to convey a sense of urgency to our patients without being overbearing and intimidating. They need to understand why it's important to pay. Your practice needs to have revenue coming in order for it to continue to function. Your families, your employees, all of them need to be supported in their lives and in providing the care for their families and to your patients. And in order to do that, that revenue flow cannot be shut off. It's also, we've talked a lot about it, the payment plans. If you offer them the ability to set up a payment plan in lieu of going to collections, that might be a way that you can reduce the number of patients that end up having to go to collections. Because if they understand, yeah, I need to pay for my bill, I just need a little bit more flexibility, then they'll be more likely to sign up for that plan, and it will take them out of the group that's more likely to go to collections, just because they can't imagine how they're going to pay that $500 bill. You may want to also consider, through this process, waiting an extra 30 to 60 days before sending patients to collections as you communicate with them. That gives you the chance to continue to talk with them, understand them, and make sure that the solution that you're putting into place fits the needs of your practice as well as the needs of the patient. So with that said, I'm going to leave the PowerPoint presentation for just a minute and show you how the integrated collections in BillFlash works. When you send statements to BillFlash, many of you who've used us and seen it, you're very familiar with this screen right here. This is going to be the same place where you'll see who goes into collections. Now, the file that I have uploaded here, because I was doing some testing just right before this, does not have anyone that's eligible for collections, but right here you'll notice that as soon as somebody goes into 91 plus days, you're going to see right here within BillFlash that they're being sent to collections. So as my statements advance and gets to those 91 plus days, then you're going to see that amount listed right over there in the collections column. And it's automatically going to go to a collection agency who will go through and follow up with them, offer them payment plans, send them letters. This is official collections where they can actually also post a report on someone's credit report if they choose not to pay. This is real collections and it's integrated here into BillFlash. If I wanted to remove someone from the collections list, all I would need to do is highlight them and then delete that particular statement out of there, and it's not going to go to collections. Our BillFlash collection services are also going to be different than many other collection agencies in that the payments that come in will directly funnel into your bank account, and you'll receive a bill at the end of the month for 35% of the amount that was actually collected. That's very different than the other collection agencies, because what they do is that they, in most circumstances, will aggregate the money and send you the entire amount that you received over the course of the month at the end of the month with their fee taken out. You receive this money immediately, which improves your cash flow, makes it so that you have that money a lot faster than you would using a more traditional collection service. There's a number of different settings that you can use to set up the collections within BillFlash. If we come here, I'm going to hit edit settings here in the settings screen within BillFlash. You can specify here what is the age that you want to send someone to collections. So you could start even after 30 days if you'd like, but you can specify, I want to give them 3 months, 4 months. If I set it to 121 days, every statement that's uploaded that is aged past 121 days is going to go straight over to collections, as opposed to something that you should be working internally. We also allow you to specify the minimum amount that you want to send to collections. I've seen different collection services. I actually saw one that sent a collection letter out to a patient for about 57 cents. That's not worth anybody's time to go after and pay a collection service or pay to even send out a statement. It costs more for a stamp than it did to collect the 57 cents. So you can specify what the minimum is, and if somebody has a balance that is below that minimum, they will simply continue to receive statements until you either write it off or decide to change that setting and then send them to collections. We also allow you to specify the settlement terms amount. This is a huge benefit to you and gives our collection service the ability to go and bring in a portion of the money when the patient might not be willing to pay the entire amount. The settlement terms are specified by you as a practice, and what they determine is how much of each bill must be paid in order for it to be considered paid off. And so you can specify that at 100%. If you don't want them to settle for anything less than the entire amount, you put 100 in there and they won't ever settle for less. If you're willing to accept 80% in order to get some of these old past due balances in, setting that to 80 will allow them to do that. We also allow you to specify whether or not our collection agency can put the patients on payment plans. Those payment plans will utilize the Bill Flash payment plans and allow you to process those payments automatically and have them go straight into your account after a conversation with our collection representatives. This makes it very, very easy for you to take the Bill Flash process and say, all right, we're going to send them a statement at 30 days, a statement at 60 days, another statement with maybe read at 90 days, and then at 120 days, we're going to send them over to a collection agency that has been given the terms that our practice is willing to accept. This makes it far more likely that the practice is going to actually get paid from those accounts that go to collections. If we wanted to show you real quick a couple of the other things that you can set up here within Bill Flash that we've talked about, we'll come here and look at plan pay and auto pay. If I click on, let's see, we'll go on to this one. I didn't have an email address on that other one, so I couldn't show you on that one, but these require an email address because we actually email the patient and require them to acknowledge both the payment plan, the auto pay, and the stored pay, so that if there's ever a dispute where the patient says that I didn't authorize you to store that, to automatically charge it, or to put me on a payment plan, we're recording the IP address, the date, and the timestamp of the authorization that's been provided by the patient so that you can successfully go and fight any disputes that might come up. But if you look at the auto payments that are here, you can specify up to a certain amount, I want this bill to automatically be paid. If the bill is less than $100, then instead of getting a statement, they're going to get a receipt that says, thank you for your payment. And as soon as that goes out within one business day, it's going to be charged automatically and dropped into your account without your staff having to do anything. The payment plans we've talked about function very similarly. You can say if the patient has a $500 balance, we want them to make a $100 payment for 5 months. And as we talked about earlier, if we want, we can have the discussion with them. Yeah, I'm sorry that you just got laid off. We are going to delay the start of your payment plan until September 1st. And if we set that up starting on September 1st and on the 1st of every month for 5 months, we're automatically going to charge whichever method they enter here automatically and drop that into your account. It makes it far more easy for those patients who are willing to do a plan pay to do so and to automate it so your staff doesn't have to remember to go run the credit card. Very, very simple. The last thing that I want to show you here is how we can collect payments from your patients before the visit. This is something that's known as link pay, where at myproviderlink.com, which is the patient-facing portal of Bill Flash, you can have a link that is specific to your practice. myproviderlink.com/Happy Valley Medical is the name of this practice. This comes standard with every instance of Bill Flash Pay services, and you can send this to a patient via text, via email. They can type it into a browser. As long as they have a device that can get to this URL, they can come and make a payment to you without any statement having to be generated. This is what you would use to collect those payments for a telehealth visit, for example, or potentially as your practice is reopening, like we talked about earlier, send them this link while they're in the parking lot or before they show up to your practice and say, you need to pay this amount before showing up. and have them make that payment before they come into your practice so that you don't have to spend that time collecting the credit cards and having a more prolonged interaction with your patient and your staff than is necessary. So we'll wrap that up. I think that we've shown you a number of the different benefits that are there for Bill Flash. I think that we're going to move on to questions next, but I want to also stress for you, if there's anything that you didn't see in great detail on today's call, if you have any questions about how you would be able to make something work, I would urge you to let us know, reach out to us at the numbers that are there, and we can schedule a consultation with you where we can take you through and answer every single question that you might have personally about how to set this up. It is very simple to do so. I have worked with Bill Flash for 10 years. I've only worked for them for 1 year. During that time, I have seen untold numbers of practices implement this, and their patient collections, their patient payments increase by 60+% in the first month of implementing it. Make it easy for your patients to pay you, and they're more likely to do so. And with that said, I think, Mari, do we have any questions that have come in during the presentation today?
Hey,
we
Kathy.
do, and Kathy actually is going to go over those.
All right. Sorry, Kathy.
Okay. That's okay. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much. You did a great job. Very informative. One of the things that you've talked about in the past, and we do have someone asking several questions related to this, the same person. There is someone who has a lot of older patients that are very uncomfortable using the web. This person wants to know, like, using the telephone to make a payment. Is that part of Bill Flash services?
It's a very good question. We don't have an IVR system that will allow them to go through an automated process of taking the payment over the phone. We're looking at that. It's something that we're examining whether or not it's a field that's growing or shrinking with regards to how people use technology. The way that people generally take phone payments with Bill Flash is if you come to the Bill Flash portal and you have your billers who answer the phone and want to take a payment, you can initiate a payment for a patient. And then if you initiate that payment while you have them on the phone, let me see if I can remember who the patients are that I can bring up. But if they store a payment method on file, you can very easily grab that. It's automatically going to put the amount in there. And if they have it on file, I chose a patient that didn't have it on file, unfortunately. So I would have to come through here and select it as a telephone payment. I can either key it in, or if the patient has stored the payment method on file, it's just going to have it there for a drop down. So it's very easy for your staff to take it. You don't have to take credit cards over the phone if the patient has stored it on file. But that's how most people are using the Bill Flash to handle telephone payments. It's not an automated IVR system.
Okay. One other question. What is, let's see, if you say that a patient must pay before they come in, what if they say, I will go to someone else? How to not let that happen? So I think the question mainly is, I mean, obviously people do have co-pays, and I think what Tony's trying to say is that the payment would be made prior to going to see the doctor, which happens quite often, but I'll also let him respond. So I guess the question is, what if you say you have to pay and they say, I'm going to go somewhere else?
Well, it's a very good question. You're going to run into that scenario, and as a practice, you need to determine what are you going to do. If a patient walks into your waiting room before the lockdowns and COVID-19 started and said, I refuse to pay my copay? Are you still going to see them? Or are you going to let them go somewhere else? Those are questions that I couldn't answer for you in your practice. That's something that you would need to look at yourself. What we're talking about with making them pay before they show up in your office is letting them know this is your copay amount. You owe $25 copay for this visit. We would like you to pay it online before you come here. Here's the option for you to do it. If you have, like my doctor, for example, has someone that sits outside the door and takes the temperature of everybody before they come in. If you have somebody that's doing that, you could have them giving out cards, for example, or have a big sign that has the link and have them use their cell phone to make the payment. If they're not willing to do those things in order to pay you for your services, or before you let them come into the practice, it really is up to you as to whether or not you want to let them go somewhere else or let them in and deal with the repercussions of what comes of that. I believe that if you give people the option to pay online and you give them that link and you find a way to make it easy for them to pay it before they walk in the front door of your practice, that there's a large number of people who are going to be willing to do that. And then you just have to decide how you want to handle those that might not be willing to.
Well, and I think that was one of the other things that you said in the presentation. There are two things. There is understanding someone's behavior. If someone doesn't want to pay ahead of time, finding out why first, and then make a decision. The second thing is to ensure that there is repetition and that your clients or your customers know exactly how they're going to be billed and that it never changes, because that creates transparency. So wouldn't you say, Tony?
That's exactly right. And if you have a process and you follow that process, if I show up at my doctor's office and there's somebody at the front door that has a link that they give me to go pay my copay on my phone, I will do that. And there's a large number of people who do. If it seems a little sketchy, if you're not prepared, they might be less likely to do that. If you think through your process and either have cards or a sign or something in an email that you send to patients before the visit comes due, if you're consistent in how you do that and you work through the process for your practice, I believe that there's a large number of your patients who are going to be very accommodating in making that happen for you.
Yeah. Next question is, what is the fee for collections?
It's 35% of what is collected. And so the way that works is if somebody goes to collections and we have the collection service call them, get them to pay, the payment in full, the full amount is going to go into your bank account immediately. And at the end of the month, you're going to receive a bill for 35% of that which is collected.
Okay. Do you integrate with Management Plus?
We have, so I have to go look and see the final list or the current list of who we have integrated and how we're integrated with them. We can work with just about any practice management system or EMR system, and we can make this happen regardless of who you use. The only question is not just if we are integrated, but what level are we integrated with them. So that's one that I would encourage you to have a consultation visit with one of our experts, and they'll be able to look it up for you and make sure that they can explain, here's how we're integrated with Management Plus.
Okay. In order to avail this service, do we need to be integrated for payments?
No, you do not have to be integrated at any level, really. If you can use this service if you can use Bill Flash at all. This service is one where we have the ability to send it back to practice management and EMR systems that choose to integrate with us. But if it does not integrate, then you would post those payments back into your system just like you would a paper EOB that came back from an insurance carrier.
Okay. I do have someone that wanted to, let's see, fee for print. I think we've already answered this. What is the fee per transaction it is standard or dependent on total collections?
If you're talking about collections, it's 35%. If you're talking about credit card transactions, I can't give you that number because the way that credit card payments and fees work are so convoluted that it's impossible to say on a call like this, because it depends on the type of card, it depends on the merchant service provider. There's a large number of things that come into play there. Generally speaking, if you're talking about the pay transactions before collections, a rule of thumb is that it's about 3%. It depends on what you use. In a lot of circumstances, it's less than 3%. I've had a number of people say, well, I can get Square for 3.5 or 3.75. If you use a debit card on Square, you're going to pay 3.75. If you use a debit card with Bill Flash, you're going to pay less than 2% in most circumstances. So it's not something that's very easy to just say, here's what it is for a payment that swipes, but that's where we have those consultations where we can show you how much you're going to pay. On average, it's about 3%.
Now, one of the questions we have here is, do you have any recommendations for a decent collection agency? And so maybe you can sort of explain how we are not a collection agency, but we do have a partnership. So not partnership, but someone who does that for us. So maybe explain what our,
the recommendation that I would give would be for our collection agency, which is actually, it's the Next Trust Integrated Collection Service. So we are working with different agencies to do that. If that would be the one that we recommend, utilizing the one that's integrated here with Bill Flash. If that's not the one that you're looking for, I would recommend that you reach out to your value-added reseller, and they're going to very likely be able to point you to the right direction, because the collection agencies, there are some nationwide ones, there's some local ones. It's really going to depend on a number of different factors that are there. If you're looking for it to be integrated into your process for billing patients for the rest of their receivables, Bill Flash is the one that I would go with all day long, because it gives you one place to manage all of your patient billings. You're not having to say my collections are separate from my statements. It's all really the same process. The only difference is, are you sending someone to a collection agency that might actually put it on their credit report? So ours is the one that I would recommend.
Okay. What is the, I'm sorry, because I'm trying to read through some of these have already been answered. What is the consensus from other users that handle deductibles? I'm not sure if this is, what is the transaction fee? Would this deductible be 2 transaction fees if paid a portion up front, then after the visit? I don't know if you want to, if you can answer this, if you'd like to call this person back.
So we can reach out to this person, but the transaction fees are a percentage of the amount that's charged. So if you collect a $25 copay before the visit, you're going to have your transaction fee on the $25 copay. There's also going to be a transaction fee on the statement that's paid after the fact, just like you would have if the patient ran the credit card in your practice after the fact. So it's a percentage that is there of each time you swipe, and there is going to be a transaction fee that is there every time a payment is made. But because that's a percentage, you're not really looking at it's not that you're paying double if they pay before and pay after. It's just a percentage of what was paid before and a percentage of what was paid after.
Okay. Do we have to pay a merchant service agreement for patients to pay online? If so, how would we find out your rates?
That's essentially the question that we've talked about. If that's something that you're interested in, then what we'll do is have a payment expert get in touch with you and have a consultation with you where they can walk you through what those rates are.
Yeah. Is the integration automatic? Do we have to manually add patients to a directory of some sort for them to sign in or pay over the phone?
Ooh, that's a great question. It can be either or. So if I come here to myproviderlink.com, I'm going to sign out, and I'm going to go to myproviderlink again and show you real quick. Hopefully my internet doesn't bail on me. It's been very slow since the whole lockdown started. But there's a feature of BillFlash that's called Guest Pay. On Guest Pay, if the patient received a bill, a statement from you, their account number is going to be on it, or their chart number, and then there's another number called a form ID. If you have those two numbers, the patient can pay you without having to have an account. The other half of that discussion, though, is that if you use BillFlash to send those statements out, we will automatically generate all of these things for the patient. The patient can self-serve and create their own account. You don't have to manage it as a practice.
Okay. Is there an option to take a picture of your credit card rather than a manual input?
We do not have the option to take a picture right now. We do have swipe capabilities. We have integrated swipers that you can utilize from your computer, whether that computer is at home, in the office, wherever it might be. And it'll allow you to swipe and get that in there and use it. You don't have to manually type it in if you don't want to. But we do not have the ability to do a picture right now.
What's the cost for ePay?
For ePay, so all of the cost discussions for ePays, for any of the payments, the cost is something that you'll have to discuss with the consultants that'll be able to take you through, because it's going to vary based on your card mix.
Okay. Can you use the collection service if you print your own payments?
If you print your own payments
Statements.
or statements?
Statements, sorry.
Yeah, you can. If you print your own statements and then decide to send somebody to collections only after it gets to that point, you could you could wait to send the statements to BillFlash until they met the collection criteria. So if you printed out your first 2 months or your first 3 months, and then the 4th month you send to BillFlash and you have collections set up, then that 4th month is going to go straight to collections and you don't have to send a statement itself.
So, okay. Then I have another one, which we'll go ahead and get set up a consultation about the different levels of BillFlash contracts. So I'm going to leave that, and for those who are asking questions like that, we'll make sure that someone reaches out to you personally and gives you the answer. Do they report to the credit bureaus?
They do, based on your communication with them. If you don't want them to report to the credit bureaus, then they won't. If you want them to, by default, they will.
There's a lot of communication with this collection. So you can omit people, and I think, if I'm correct, before they would send it to a collections agency, they would have to get the practice to allow it. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. Does BillFlash work with Amazing Charts or Easy Claim?
Yes,
no.
We do work with them. So it's just a question as to how deep the integration is. And that's something that a consultant would be able to help you with. But Easy Claim in particular is a great partner of ours.
And that's it. If you have any other questions, you can feel free to reach out to, I think it's, let's see, do we have the slide that gives the information? We'll be sending you an email as well. So we'll be sending the PowerPoint and an email. So if you have any other questions, but in the meantime, we also will have people reach out to you as well on some of the questions that you might have. So I'm going to turn it back over to Tony and let him say goodbye. And thank you all so much. We really, really appreciate your time.
I don't know how much more I can add to that, Kathy, but I'll echo it. I agree. Thank you for spending some time with us here today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out either by phone or email on the screen there. Follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn if you'd like to get some good information that Kathy's been sharing out there. There's a lot of interesting things going on in the healthcare industry right now. It's an interesting time to be involved in it. If you have anything that we can do better for you, also don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, and thanks, Mari.
Thank you, everyone.